Hello, this is Empathy Unbound. Embrace your superpower. Today, I'm really thrilled to be in conversation with Kat Oldershaw. Kat has a psychology background from UC Berkeley, is an expert in empathic leadership, and passionate about creating spaces for non traditional business practices. As a California native, creative, and operations specialist, in 2022, Kat founded Kat & Co., a business operations consultancy that provides full service support, strategy, and partnership to creative businesses. I do think at heart that Kat is an artist and has created some beautiful and inspiring pieces. And I'll put some links to some of her works. It is really stunning. And I'm really interested to understand how creativity, process, and operations come together. They're not necessarily natural bedfellows for many people. So I could say a huge amount more, but I think you're here to listen to Kat. So, Kat, you're very, very welcome. Thank you for finding the time to join us. And the first thing I want to ask really is, what's your background? What's helped create the person that's been kind enough to join us today?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Andrew. I'm really pleased to be here on the show. Um, Background, wow. Well, I guess you've already stated I'm California native, but I did grow up in a part of California people don't often think about when they picture California. I'm from the Central Valley, a lot of farming region, and I grew up in somewhat of a small town. It's much larger now, but in my childhood, it definitely had the small town vibe to it. Somewhere that you would never stop in from LA to San Francisco. Um, I was a quiet child, very introverted. I still am for most of the time, and very creative. I had my creative tendencies and definitely used that as an outlet for myself, while also pursuing my educational endeavors. I I think kind of early on, teenage, early adulthood, started using travel as another way to educate myself, and um, moved out of my small town as soon as I could, and up to the Bay Area, where I spent most of my schooling years and early career years there, while also traveling whenever I got the chance. Now I'm located in Los Angeles, and am really kind of in my first couple years of business entrepreneurship, and really starting that and seeing how that is connected to all of the things I've done before, which is quite interesting and wild to live through.
And do you prefer life in the big city as opposed to the small town?
I wouldn't say I'm a city person, no. So I think eventually the goal is to move somewhere quieter, but um, definitely for the time being, it is nice to be in a place with so many opportunities for connections when you're building a company.
Yeah. Hmm. So you talked about empathic leadership on your website, which is what drew me to you in the first place, actually. And I just wondered if you could give us your thoughts on what empathy is and what is empathic leadership.
That's a great question. For me, I first empathy for me is kind of that ability to think outside of yourself and deeply consider what other people around you might be feeling and going through, and how your actions affect them. Um, Empathic leadership to me, when I'm working with a business owner and we're establishing their processes and how best to run their company, one, it's affecting them, it's affecting their livelihood. This is something that they've built, their baby. It's a very vulnerable thing to be coming to someone for help in the first place, but also asking for someone for help with something that you've created. Um,
Mhm.
so coming to that from a place of understanding and really creating a safe space for them to be open with everything that they might have tried, the passions that led them to start the business in the first place. And also when they're in the point to be building their team and growing their team, really using empathy to kind of use that foresight to think through what a new person in this environment would be feeling and thinking, and ensuring that the company's values, whatever processes that we're putting in place, any training documents that are created are really set up to make that new person feel like they can thrive and be confident in the role that they have been assigned to do.
I really like that, and I haven't heard that before. One of the comments, at least, we talked about trying to imagine how somebody new would feel coming into this space and what their first experience might be. And the reason I like it is I joined a big company. I won't say which one. Quite a while ago, I guess. During one of my jobs, anyway. And I remember the first day walking in. It was a beautiful building. It was stunningly designed. All the meeting rooms that I was interviewed in were all fabulous and were all sensational. And we went upstairs to the third floor where I was going to be working. And I came out of the elevators, and my first comment to my soon-to-be boss was, "This is a tip. It's a dump." There were just literally paper and stuff and mess and things everywhere. It didn't seem to have any, and it wasn't sort of a creative mess. It was just a mess. And I thought, I really, and I think because if you're working there, if you're living it, you don't notice it. It's like if you're in a house and the paint's peeling a little bit, it's just peeled gradually over time. You'll get around to it at some point. But somebody walking in afresh, somebody looking to maybe buy the house, they're looking with a very different eye. So I do think it's a really powerful thing to think about. What does this space mean, and what does it show about the business? Is the space reflective of our culture? Is the space reflective of who we want to recruit? So I think that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that before. Do you think that empathy is our default setting, or I guess, or not? I mean, we talked briefly, and I won't ask you about it. We talked briefly about politics before because you have to, talking to somebody in America at the moment. And it does appear from the election, whichever side you're on, that there did seem to be potentially a lack of empathy, if we define empathy as being able to put yourself in somebody else's position. And I just wonder whether empathy is a default setting, or it's something we need to work at and we can develop and we can get better at.
That's a great question. I want to believe that it is innate, that everyone has that ability. I think it can very quickly be masked by other emotions that can feel stronger. And what does come up for me, and on that point, is there's, at least in my experience, there's a difference, between empathy and hypervigilance. And for me, for XYZ reason, have been an anxious person for most of my life and do experience hypervigilance a lot of the time, trying to ensure and think through A, B, C, D, E, F, G plan around me to ensure that everyone around me is comfortable and safe and they're okay, while not also taking care of myself. I think that's one way that you can kind of lose touch of the actual true vein of empathy. And the only way to get in touch with that, I think, is building back up the confidence and the trust in yourself that the things that I am offering and helping others are valuable. And that allows you to be more present with what someone's saying to you and really listen to what they're saying, and also read between the lines and intuit kind of what they need on a deeper level.
That's a fabulous answer. And I do want to come on to later on about the importance and value and almost selflessness of loving ourselves and caring for ourselves and making sure we do have the energy that we need to give to other people. Because like you said, especially in your shoes, if you are reaching out to people that perhaps haven't talked about these things before, they haven't brought something into the business before, it's hard for them.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of positive energy from you. But we're like an electric vehicle. We need charging ourselves. If we don't take care of that, then how can we expect to help anybody else, really?
Mhm.
I did want to just pick at the business a little bit, and so obviously you have a very artistic background. Just look at your backdrop. You're very passionate for creativity, and you have academic prowess and interest in psychology. So it's not necessarily the most obvious step to develop a business operations consultancy. And I just wondered how you think they fit together, and whether you always knew you were an entrepreneur at
Mm.
heart.
That's a I'll start with the second one.
Okay.
No, I didn't know, and I think that kind of goes back to my earlier question of trying to ensure everyone around me is taken care of. That was my default for a long time,
Yeah.
and I think that's why I, uh excelled really well in the operations fields.
Mhm.
And because at that level, you have to be, thinking through all of the things that can go wrong to make sure that things go right. Um, so I think through that predisposition of myself, I found myself in operations roles again and again and again, whether it's operations manager, director, studio director, etc. But because of my actual interests, I prefer to be in the creative fields. So, I have my degree in psychology. I actually started in biotech, which was not a good fit for me, and then decided to jump back over and started as an executive assistant at an interior design build firm. And that's kind of where I stayed, those industries and the surrounding types of similar, interiors, custom furniture, fine art, design build, etc. So I kind of at that point realized that I'm merging the two parts of myself, the operations, the logistics, the analytical side with the creative side that I've always had. And I think
Mhm.
probably dampened for a long time because I thought I needed to um, perform at this level, to be a professional person. You have to be put together and organized in a box. So I think I slowly began to shift my mindset once I was in the industry that I felt aligned with my actual self. Um, and through that, I realized the pattern of the types of jobs that I was getting time and time again, the operations types roles. So it was maybe only 3 or 4 years ago that I realized, after the pandemic, it kind of shifted a lot of people's thinking about their preferences on working and what they actually would like their work situation to be. At that moment, I realized, I actually do really prefer working by myself. And I started consulting at that time while also having a full time job, hoping that eventually they would kind of meet in the middle and then I would be on my own. Instead, I was laid off unexpectedly, and that was the kind of catalyst to dive headfirst into consulting. So, to your earlier question, I don't think that they are kind of go hand in hand, operations and creativity. You don't often think of them together, but it is a big hole, I think, in the market and in typically creative operations. Um, Having that visionary and that creative person and the passion and the reason why they started the business, and then realizing, oh my God, I have to do all this other stuff and actually run the business. I don't know how to do that. So that's kind of where I have naturally found myself to fit into.
I mean, you glad you dived into the consulting world?
Yes. Very
Good,
much so.
good. I mean, and that's what I really like about how you operate and how you think is that a lot of times, companies can hire consultants to come in and give them process maps and ways to do things, etc. But you always want the person you're working with to have some appreciation and understanding for the fundamentals of your business. And if you are a creative business, having somebody that understands actually this works fine for an engineering company, but for a creative company, I understand about the flow of work and how things happen and stuff. People feel more comfortable, I think. And I think it just allows them to be more open about what they really want as opposed to following standard processes. So I think that's it is a valuable niche. Not even niche, it's a massive creative industry. It's a valuable way of working with teams that I haven't really seen before. And I'm not sure whether this is an unfair question or you just get bored answering it, but give it a go. So is it possible to take us through how a project works? And I know every project's different, but from when you first sort of meet somebody, how does your role, how does your interaction with the team you're working with come about?
So I'll always start with, a quick 30-minute call with the owner. And that's just kind of a moment for us to see if we get along with each other, one. And two, if I feel like I can be of value to them. And in that call, I'll ask, generally, questions about their business, obviously, but more specifically, what are they doing on the day to day? What do they not want to be doing? What keeps them up at night? What things are they stressing about that they feel like they don't have control over? What's the breakdown of their team? Who's responsible for what? Are there any kind of unknown things that just don't get done because no one feels responsible for them and aren't doing them? And generally what their immediate goals are, whether it's kind of defining their processes and putting their ideas onto paper or digitally, so to say, so it's available for anyone to access that. I think that's a big thing with creatives is they know their process. They know what works for them and they know how their business should run. But a lot of the times it's locked into their brain and are surprised to learn or hear that other people don't intuitively know that. So it really takes time to get that information out and put it to paper and make it accessible for whoever is working with them. So we have that call. I type madly, very fastly, take a bunch of notes. And then I'll come back to them with kind of what I think the first 3 targets or the first 3 things that we can work on together. And then we go from there. A lot of the times, I'll start working with a company and other things will come up. So I'm very flexible in that way and making sure that when I'm signing on to work with a company that we both know that things can evolve and change. And some people just need one quick thing and then they'll come back to me maybe a month or 2 down the road and say, hey, can you help me with this other thing? Sure. And others I'm signing on and becoming part of their team and part of their kind of leadership team in a sense for a long period of time. So it really depends on what their needs are.
And in the different businesses that you work with, so there's different client types, different expectations. It's always down to the consultant to be able to almost morph into this entity that can accommodate different types of people. I just wondered, how do you handle people that maybe are very assertive or very loud or very quiet or very unsure or very certain? How do you, because ultimately they might all actually need the same thing, but how do you handle dealing with such different people?
Meet them where they're at. Allow them to understand that, first of all, you're never going to get any judgment from me. Wherever you are in the stage of your process, of your business, things evolve all the time. You're never going to put something into place and then it's going to be that way forever. So really allowing them space to work through these things in lifetime with me, and get to the core of what they need and what is going to help them. Personality aside, like you said, everyone essentially it's the same type of tasks, but you just have to adjust to the individual person and how their brain functions and how they like to receive information and how they like to communicate themselves, and adjust the modality of the actual task to kind of meet them where they're at.
That's where the psychology background comes in.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
hmm. And I used to be a consultant hundreds of years ago. But one of the things one of the things that always stuck with me was how much more likely businesses were to use the output that had been developed if they felt a sense of ownership. So, and I know some consultancies would go in, they get the brief, they get a very detailed brief, they go away for 6 weeks, come back, and then there's the answer. There's your 400-page report. There's the sort of McKinsey deck that sits on a shelf and gathers dust.
Mhm.
And I just wondered if your experience is the same. That actually it's so important that when people hire consultants to work with them, it's not abdicating responsibility. It's having somebody in there that can help clarify and put down, as you say, document, process, but ultimately the client needs to own and respect the
Yeah,
output. I'm not sure what the question is there, but do
I
you know
follow
what I
the
mean?
thread.
It's got to be ownership. Yeah,
Yes, and I mean, there's a reason. Okay, so I think one thing that sets me apart from other consultants is I'm not one size fits all. I'm not gonna
yeah,
come in and say, "This is the one program that you have to use, and that's it. Goodbye, give me $10,000." Like, that's not how it works. Um, and to that point, to your point, a program is just a program. There's never gonna be a program that's going to solve your problems. It's the actual process and the follow through and the changing of behavior that's going to solve the problems, So it's really it's not just coming in and providing strategy or this is what I think you should be doing. There's also the implementation component of it too, where you're
yeah.
coming in and you are kind of guiding them towards this is what I think would be best for you, and I'm going to help you do it. I think that second part is not usually, commonly, I would say, left off the table. And then the owner just has another thing to add to their to-do list,
Yeah.
and the reason they're asking for help is because they need help. They don't just need ideas. They have the ideas, but they need someone to help implement them.
I always thought that was one of the biggest gaps that
Mhm.
I always came across. That you typically get hired to create the answer, if that's the right word, with the client, which is brilliant. Then you leave
Yeah.
and you think, well, has anything happened with it?
Yeah.
It's always because implementing it isn't the same as doing it. Because you think, well, it's just doing it now, but it isn't, because no matter what we create, it's always going to need refining and adjusting and tweaking and
Mhm.
changing and amending. Of course it is. So you want to be able to implement is about measuring the success of the objective. So you wanted to get this. How close are we getting to? Actually, well, we need to change that a bit more on this. But yeah, it's all about tuning, isn't it? So I think not being there for the implementation stage, I used to get so frustrated. I almost want, I'll just do it. I'll just do it for you.
Exactly.
I just want to see what happens.
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly right, and I think you just hit on a very important vein there that, um, a lot of and I'm guilty of this too, a lot of owners, they know how to do it, like I said earlier, they know what is
Yeah.
intuitively best for them. It's that gap between training others to do that in the right way and finding the ways to communicate that effectively. So when you're coming into a situation, I'm not an expert. I don't know everything. My job is to come in and help you tap into what is intuitively right for you and then help you do it. So it's really, kind of a partnership in a way. It's not a consultant, they know everything, they're going to figure it out, and then I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people were sadly disappointed if that's what they expect now. But the value, another value you bring is you just had experience with lots of different business and clients. Some
Mm,
people have, especially in the creative industry, they started it off as a one-person team or two-person team. They developed it, and that's all they've known in a
yes.
way, which is great. But they just haven't got that broader knowledge. They're not constantly looking and finding new things and new developments because they're busy. They're busy doing what they do.
Mhm,
They're busy
mhm,
working. They're busy being
mhm,
creative, and that's where consultants add their value, is coming in with up-to-date expertise, understanding, ability to empathize, and to align with the
mm.
clients. Well, one of the things I find about you, and you can tell me if this is fair or unfair, and you don't know what I'm going to say, so don't look so worried.
Uh-oh.
Is you are a bit of a conundrum in a way. So I thought I was pretty good at reading people, and one of the things that I initially thought very strongly when I read the stuff that you'd written on your website, and I'd sort of listened to other podcasts you'd done, and I sort of talked to you a little bit previously. And I think this is still true. You are an overwhelmingly positive person. You give off a very positive energy. But then you talked about the anxiety and sometimes the sort of the nervousness, the worry. And I just wondered if if you do self doubt, and how do you remain externally so positive?
Of course, I self-doubt. Everyone does, I believe. Um, Gosh, the thing I wanna say is, that's how I present myself to other people. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. In essentiality, everyone has the mask that they present to other people. That is something that I feel I am at my deepest core. I am a positive and optimistic person. I love making other people laugh. I have a very, uh I have a good sense of humor. I like to laugh with my clients, um, and have a good time with them. But that's not to say that I don't worry after a call, "Oh my god, what am I doing with my life? Am I even doing the right thing? Why did I
Yeah.
say that one thing?" Like, "Oh gosh, of course I do that." Um, I think what's helped me obviously is, one, you get wisdom with age and experience. So obviously to be open to continuously learning, that is a big thing. And to not ever feel like you know everything because you will be sorely mistaken. um, and through therapy, I have really helped build the trust in myself. Now, that's not to say again that it's always there, but it is a vein of knowing that if and when I come across a situation that I don't know how to handle, trusting myself that I'm going to figure it out. And that kind of nugget right there has helped alleviate a lot of the anxiety that goes into trying to plan and predict the things that you can't control. Because once you realize, oh, okay, I do trust my ability to figure this out and trust that I can tap into what's right for me and my business at that moment, I don't need to spend a lot of extra energy stressing about it. It's a
Mm.
practice. It changes every day. I think I mentioned earlier, I have had anxiety for a lot of my life, and I still struggle with that. But I think a big part of my personal ethos is trying to find joy and bring joy to others. So even if some days I feel like I'm baking it, you can still find it in the community with other people.
And in connection with that, what do friends and family mean to you? How important are they in your life?
My friends are extremely valuable for me. I'm very, very grateful and lucky to have a very tight knit group of friends that also happen to be business owners. So that has been extremely valuable to me. Um, Kind of going through this path together, and using them as a sounding board, when I am usually that for my clients, and then I'm like, "Well, what do I do when I have a problem?" Using them as a way to kind of, test the waters and check in with them and, get validation and, have them assure me like, "You're doing great." So, yeah, very valuable and important.
And do you find it easy to let new people in? Do you let yourself be loved?
That's a great question. Um, I am a very private person. Um, I almost said something about a horoscope, but then I don't wanna be labeled as California woo woo, you know?
Too late for that. That ship sailed.
Oh, yeah, the cat's out of the bag. Um,
Mm.
so, I mean, I've always felt that, uh, even as a child, yeah, I mean, I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't really have a big group of, people around me. And still, I think that follows me into my adult life that I'd rather have, count on one hand close relationships as opposed to hundreds of superficial ones. So for me, it really takes a lot to kind of get into the inner circle.
I think you're absolutely right. I think quality, not quantity.
Yes. Yeah.
It's about you want the person that you can pick up the phone to no matter what time of day or night it is, and they'll feel the same about you. That somebody that you'll be somebody that is very valuable to their life, and I think that's a great place to be, really.
Yeah.
And we talked about this almost right at the beginning in a way, but didn't really dive into it. But so the sort of self-care side of things. So how do you look after yourself? So you obviously have to put energy
Yeah.
into what you're doing. You can't sort of go in. You can't really dial in what you're doing. You've got to be there, and you've got to be present. You've got to be in a good place. So how do you look after yourself? How do you make sure you're performing at at top of your ability?
I'm a big fan of yoga.
Mhm.
I almost every day will do some sort of, even if it's just 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Um, I like to do that at the end of my workday. It kind of helps me uh, clear my thoughts and start the second part of my day, of, taking care of my immediate family and um, whether it's cooking dinner or whatever the second part of the day has in play, kind of using
Yeah.
that as a tool to clean the slate. Okay, let's refresh. Whatever issues are going on can be tackled tomorrow, and just help prime my mind for that second part of living, which is a different pace. And showing up in a different way, from business hat to personal hat.
And you live in a beautiful part of the world. And does nature and being outside does that play a part in energizing you?
Absolutely. I really feel I love forests. I love trees.
Mhm.
I'm a big tree nerd. Um, I I think that's the type of nature that I feel most connected to, even though I do live close to the beach. But yeah, there's something so calming, and I think neurologically, scientifically proven
Mm.
about being in a forest. I think it just really is grounding and helps you center.
It does, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but for people out there that haven't perhaps done this, um, just hug a tree,
It works.
and you would be. I do it, and it's amazing, really. And I think we are learning more and more that how trees are connected underground to one another, how
Oh
they
my gosh, it's
communicate, and
insane.
there's a huge
Yes,
there's a
the
huge
mycelium
energy
network.
from the.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge. I must have book I read. Oh, it's either like how trees communicate or how. And there's another one about fungi as well, which
Mm.
is extraordinary.
Mhm.
And yeah, I find you sort of hug this tree, and somehow the sort of energy it's had from its 50, 100, 200 years of being on the planet, that it's captured all the things it's absorbed and seen and experienced in the body of its trunk, really, and just sort of being able to share that, I think it's fabulous.
Mhm.
And when somebody first said that to me, it was a friend of mine. I said,
You're like,
"Would you believe
"Okay."
you don't know what things?" And everybody's seeing me now.
Go back to eating your
Yeah, and
granola. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And when you actually do it, it's yeah, it's so cool. And I'm lucky enough to live near woods and a sort of
Mm.
common and things. And I just was out today walking the dog. It's quite cold here at the moment, so it's like 0 degrees,
Oof.
and the sort of dog was running around. She loves the cold and loves running around, rubbing her face in the frost and stuff. But just the amazing colours of the trees, how the leaves change the things. If somebody's job was to count the colours on one tree, you'd never finish it. It's an endless task because it's just stunning,
Mhm.
just absolutely. And there's no reason for it in a way why they go these incredible yellows and golds and reds and ochres and magentas and just stunning. And then then it come back to life again in spring. And I just think they are, yeah.
Cyclical.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sound like a California
I
hippie
know,
now.
I'm like, "Should we
It's
switch
no,
places?"
it's fabulous, isn't it? It's catchy. It's just such an amazing. And I do think, yeah, absolutely. During COVID, we did find out the huge value of being
Oh, yeah.
outside. In the UK, we're restricted to sort of 1 hour a day to be outside. And oh my goodness, it would just that has sort of stuck with me now
Mhm.
massively. That the benefit of being outside, and in the morning, I try and get out in the morning. We have a small garden. I try and get out in the morning, no matter how cold it is, in my bare feet and walk on the
Mhm.
grass, which sounds very, it's weird. You just feel a connection in a very different way than walking on a pavement with shoes and socks and everything.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's really
that's
cool.
true.
I wanted to touch a little bit on your art, if that's okay.
Oh,
So, and I will put some links into the notes because it is beautiful. And I just wonder, when you have time, assuming you ever do have time, to finish a piece of art, and you sort of make the decision that okay, it's finished now. Which I think must always be a hard decision to make. Actually, and finished. Just stop working on it. Just stop. How do you feel when it's finished? What sort of emotions and feelings does it give you?
hmm. Well, I will say I haven't painted in a long time. As one form of art medium, I was very into kind of painting and ink work and for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, and I've kind of shifted around on different creative mediums, and I was, doing textiles for a while, wallpaper, and then and more recently it's been block printing and printmaking, and so whatever it is, they all kind of have their different ways of knowing when it's done. I think maybe
Mhm.
I've kind of, and now that I'm realizing this in live time as I'm talking to you, but I've kind of shifted more towards mediums that have a more exact way of knowing when they're done.
Yeah.
Like printmaking, for example, very clear if you've messed up because you'll notice it in the print. So I think I've more, as I've not to say I might not ever pick up painting again. Maybe I will, and I'm sure that the effect will be completely different because I'm a different person. But I think, at least for me, my part of process when I'm creating is I am still organizing the creative process in an odd way. For
Yeah.
example, some of the ink paintings that I've done in the past, I would utilize lines to kind of guardrail the actual flow of the ink to keep it organized. So I think that's just, for me, it's finding that balance of uh, the flow, freeing, creative, kind of messy parts, and then the parts that contain it and the parts that organize it.
Mhm. Do you ever think about poetry? And the reason I say that is that some people are sort of me, oh, yeah, should write a book or do whatever. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think you just have, yeah, you just come across as somebody that's got a beautiful flow with words,
Mm.
and I think it'd be really interesting to see you express that through poetry
I've
as a creative
never
medium.
heard that before, but
Mm.
I for a while, right after about when I got laid off, I was like, I'm going to write a novel. And of course, made an Excel spreadsheet about it. And
Of
of
course.
course, and organized every single chapter and plot point. And then when it came to the creative writing part of it, it kind of died off. So that is a practice for me. I mean, finding time and putting time into my schedule to actually do the creative aspect of it, instead of just
Mm.
organizing it. Um, so interesting. I mean, I'll take that into consideration. I am, obviously with podcasting, this is a medium that never thought I would be in my future, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and just having the freedom to kind of go into a conversation with no guardrails and see what happens. So would be interesting to put that to paper as well.
Yeah, I think you're very, very natural, and I think I think poetry feels the most like sort of abstract art in a way. That there's no rules as such about when it's finished,
Hmm.
or how it should look, or whether anybody else should like it or anybody else should even see it. It's just sometimes a way to get those feelings down. Really, the last two questions I think are probably I built up. These are the hardest ones. So I built up to
Uh-oh.
them. I think the first one. Well, no, this one isn't so hard. But so, what's next for you? What do you think and I say sort of relatively short term future holds?
Hmm. Well, I guess immediately focused on, I'm working on updating kind of the messaging of some parts of my company, and really ensuring that the services that I offer are clear, and am attracting, those that I think we work well together, and making it clear of, the types of groups and communities that I support. Um, so that's immediate future, like next several months. And within the next year, I'd love to continue to expand my reach, and working with other like-minded contractors like myself to build out, the wide range of services that we can offer to people. Um, and I guess on a personal development note, using forms of media like podcasting, to continue the journey of being more comfortable with my authentic voice. I think that's something that's important to me, and through therapy and through becoming more and more comfortable being a business owner, and becoming comfortable sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
Sharing when it's not perfect. I think that's a big thing for me. Is always a lesson, is, what's coming up for me, and I think I'll share this, is um, something that a realization I had within the last year was the first kind of thought or gut feeling or gut reaction that comes to me. Let's just say for an email, the first thought response that I have is my authentic voice. Second, third, fourth thought are editing that, with, ways that I was raised, or someone else's voice, or some other judgment, or some saboteur that's inside of me. And it's hard to stick to that first authentic response. So that's something that I'm practicing and learning to, and just saying, hey, no, you don't need to edit everything. Try and stick to what is true and authentic and intuitive to you.
That's a fabulous aspiration, because we all have a voice.
Mhm.
I guess some are quieter than others, and sometimes we let situation, experience, upbringing, etc.,
Yeah.
almost drown the voice out
Yes.
and create another voice. We almost had this, we have this sort of false accent we suddenly put on, or we're using different words, or we're typing in a different tone, or Yeah, it's nice when somebody gets an email or has a conversation with you, whatever, that they know it's you that they're talking to or hearing from, not
Mm.
a sort of sanitized version of you. And not everybody can handle that. And I totally appreciate it. Sometimes you just got to be, more, I guess, more.
I'm not saying to do it in every situation, but
No,
you
no,
can at
no.
least just notice and start to pay attention to, like,
Yes.
in what situations am I changing this, and what situations can I actually stay true to it, and really kind of noticing and tracking and paying attention to that. Um, as well as which version of that mm, makes you feel better.
Yeah, it's about being mindful and intentional, isn't it, I suppose?
Mhm.
Sort of knowing what you're doing and meaning that, as opposed to, yeah, just falling into the habit of responding or acting in certain
Mm.
ways. And and the last question, if that's
Yeah.
okay, is one that only you can answer. And so, if someone asks, as I am, what is it like being you? What is it like being Kat? How do you answer?
Um, hmm. I don't know. How do you answer that without sounding completely self-centered?
That's okay.
It's a unique experience, I'll tell you that. Hmm, I think I'm I'm kind of relaxing into the gratitude of, where I am in my life.
Yep.
Um, I think that's you know, a big thing, for someone that has struggled a lot with mental health in their life to feel finally these, like, threads and everything's kind of forming and coming together, and you're like, "Yes, finally." So, I think for me, at this time in my life, it feels exciting, um, to have that kind of foresight and be like, I'm completely in charge of my own destiny." Which is great. Um, and I don't think that I would ever have gotten to this point if I hadn't kind of gone on my own and done my own company and kind
Mhm.
of gone the path of, uh, that realization of I don't have to ask anyone's permission to do this. I don't need to check if this email is okay to send it. So it's kind of that, like, empowerment and that realization of, like, "Oh, I am in charge of my own destiny," um, is quite an exciting time for me personally to be, living through this, and now I'll have this captured on recording for the rest of my life.
Oh,
Yep.
that's a great answer. I just want to say a massive thank you for your time, for being so open, and yeah, for sharing a little bit of what it's like to be you and what it's like at work, and yeah, how you do things. So I think it was really good.
No,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for the platform and the opportunity.